Well, good morning, everybody. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here, and thank you to all the school leaders from all over the world that are joining us right now. Ryan and Wallace gave you a little bit of background about me from Chicago. I've been working in international education for the last 10 years here in Rio de Janeiro. The last 6 has been as a principal. So I had the opportunity to participate 2 weeks ago in the SchoolRubric event. And when Ryan asked me, said, "Hey, would you like to participate? And what would you like to do?" Right away, it just popped in my mind. How are we going to be better post-pandemic? Because when I look at what we're going through right now in terms of this COVID, it just has to be a pivotal moment. It just feels like it's a pivotal moment. When we began this as administrators, I remember when we came back from second semester, we were just hearing a little bit about this COVID thing. We were trying to figure out who traveled where, what kind of, small measures do we need to put in place to protect our kids. Next thing you know, we're developing COVID-19 4-tiered matrices. We're developing distance learning plans. And next thing you know, with the ink barely dry, our schools are all on distance learning. Those first 3 weeks were just fast and furious. I mean, we were doing everything we possibly could just to get everything up and running and smooth. And about 3-4 weeks in, we were able to kind of take a step back and take a deep breath when things were running smoothly, or at least I sure was as an administrator. And I think at that point, as administrators, as school leaders, we need to ask ourselves, well, what comes next? Where is this going to go? I mean, I think at this point in time, we're pretty clear that we're going to be in a distance learning environment for the rest of this school year, and we might even be opening schools in a distance learning environment. Who knows? It's definitely been a challenge, and it's not been ideal, but what kind of good is going to come out of this? Now, what I believe that there are a series of opportunities that are going to present themselves. Definitely challenges, but within those challenges, opportunities. And what I would like us to do today is to think about those. I want to touch on some of these broad themes, these broad opportunities, and then maybe think about how we as school leaders are going to take advantage of those opportunities, leverage those opportunities to ensure that we're better at what we do post-pandemic, and then maybe even use this as a catalyst for long-term change. So first of all, the big thing to me that's happened here is this has been a disrupting event. Now, it has been long predicted that technology was in some way, shape, or form going to disrupt education as we know it. And even though technology or schools have been technology-rich places for a long, long time, I mean, back in the 80s, we had the Macintosh computer lab in my lower school. But yet, we haven't really seen much change in terms of the way that we do business within schools, the way that our school day is structured. We haven't even really seen technology positively impact student learning on a consistent basis. And yet we've seen technology transform industry after industry outside of education. So for some strange reason, it just didn't disrupt education. But I have a feeling that this COVID moment, this disruption, is going to be the straw that kind of breaks the camel's back there. And I want to take a look at that. Now, a couple of the things that I've seen happening that I think are going to be key to helping us change going forward is we have all been forced into learning. We have been forced out of our comfort zones. We have been forced to work in novel ways. This includes parents, students, teachers, and administrators. Parents have been forced to get involved in their kids' education in ways in which they haven't done before. They have been asked to, depending on if their kids are younger or older, figure out how Google Classroom works, help them get on to Google Meets, Google Zoom. They've been sitting in the background listening to their teachers as they give lessons, and they've been paying attention at a level in which they haven't done before. So there's some parent participation there, which presents a huge opportunity for us to capitalize on. Students have been forced to really work independently and start developing some autonomous learning skills, self-management skills that are going to be huge for them going forward. And they're the exact type of skills that we've been saying that we want to develop within them all along in terms of 21st century skills. Administrators, we've been forced to let go and to trust our staff, to trust our teachers who have stepped up amazingly and done absolutely tremendous jobs. We too have been forced to work in different ways in terms of using technology for our staff meetings, to assemblies, however it is that we're doing it. But then teachers literally have been forced to do almost everything different. They have been forced to out of their classrooms. They're now teaching virtual classes. They are using a variety of different technologies and softwares, ready or not, and they are learning on the fly. So all of this learning that's taking place, I think we are going to come back to the classroom. We're going to come back to our schools, different people. I think we as parents, as students, as leaders, as educators, we are going to be different going forward because of this experience. And then we have to leverage that and use it as an opportunity. So let's talk about, Brian, space and time, if we go to the next slide. So what I want to reflect on here is how we use our space and how we use our time. Our teachers are going to be coming back with a whole nother level of knowledge and understanding in terms of how to use digital tools, in terms of how to use blended learning strategies. Now, we've had our teachers that were maybe less tech savvy, and they have changed their practice and are now ready and open to learn and more comfortable using new technologies. We have our teachers that are more tech savvy that have taken what they already knew and deepened it considerably. That really gives us a unique opportunity. As an administrator, oftentimes when I go into classrooms and I do observations, we look at what's being done in the classroom and we can say, okay, is this active learning? Is this passive learning? Is this teacher-centered learning, or is this student-centered learning? And I think what's happening here now is we have an opportunity to use these blended learning strategies to change the way that we use space and time. Because if there's one of the things that I think we've learned from this is that, one, our brick and mortar schools are important. The time that we have together physically in space is extremely important. And there are certain things that we can do together and we can only do together. And we need to be using that space when we're together for those reasons. So any thought that technology is going to disrupt education in a way to where we no longer need our brick and mortar schools, I believe that the COVID disruption has totally dispelled that myth. Any thought that there's this future and where we don't need teachers and kids are going to be learning from some type of an advanced computer program, COVID-19 disruption has totally dispelled that myth. But I think what it has showed us is that there is very, very unique value in our physical spaces and the time that we have together. And that teachers are actually more valuable than ever, particularly if they are skilled in using blended learning technologies and creating learning-centered environments that are based in active learning. So what I want to ask for you folks to reflect on here today, and perhaps we can talk about this afterwards, is one, how can we use technology to create asynchronous learning environments for our students that take things and move them out of the classroom, that move them out of the physical space, that then opens the physical space to use it and to leverage it in more high impact ways? How can we use technology to outsource either low impact activities so our teachers can focus on high impact activities? How could we use it to augment or help them get even better at high impact activities? And use it to fundamentally change the way that we use our physical spaces, so that when we go into physical spaces, we're using that time to do literally what we can only do together in physical space. And that is student-centered learning, that is active learning, that is applying knowledge. It's deeper and it's higher level learning. And then how could things like receptive learning, passive learning, which are needed, but they don't need to be in that physical environment, how can they be moved out? And then finally, how are we going to capitalize on this? So we're leaders. We've got all of our teachers coming back. They are ready and willing to do new things. They have discovered better ways of doing things. They have discovered similar ways of doing things on technologies that are time savers. Now, how are we as teachers, or how are we as administrators going to help our teachers transform their practice? Well, the first thing that I want to say to them is, don't go back. Go forward. Keep doing what you've been doing, and then let's build on that. In terms of a professional learning community, in terms of focusing our learning, sharing our learning, we have a collective capacity. Each and every single one of our staffs are going to be coming back with a higher level collective capacity. How are we as leaders going to tap into that learning, identify those high impact strategies, and then make sure that they spread throughout the staff? We're also probably going to have students coming back with tremendous learning gaps. Now, we've always had students coming in with learning gaps. We've always had students that are wherever they are at in their learning. And many schools across the world have done amazing things with technology, with blended learning, with online learning, with individualized learning programs to help close that gap. But yet many schools haven't. We're going to have an opportunity here, I think, to look at students who've come back, because particularly students who are somewhat disadvantaged or were disadvantaged during the distance learning are going to come back with larger gaps than ever. I think it's an opportunity for us as leaders to look at our RTI programs and to say, how could we implement a blended learning component to our RTI? How could we use individualized, personalized instruction and use technology to support that? And finally, how could we consciously make sure that the time that we spend together in the classroom is focused on deep learning, active learning, applying and developing those 21st century skills, and doing the things that we can only really do when we are together. So having said that, we are going to be back together here very, very soon. And I'm very looking forward to sitting down with my teachers, tapping into their excitement and supporting them in transforming their practices and transforming our school. And I can see this getting to a point down the road where we actually, especially in maybe middle and upper school, we start even moving off the bell schedule, where we start thinking about space and time in different ways, where we start thinking about learning in terms of synchronous and asynchronous, even within the school day, and giving kids time and space within the physical building to work in different ways. So having said that, I'm very excited to now have a conversation with all of you.